My name is Marcus Webb, and 6 months ago, I thought my biggest problem was whether to finally replace the cracked bathroom mirror in my Chicago apartment, or keep avoiding my own reflection during my late-night insomnia episodes. While wearing the same black hoodie with a faded tech company logo, dark jeans that had seen better years, and steel-toe work boots that clicked against hardwood floors during my restless 3 a.m. wandering sessions. I was 28 years old, working night shifts as a digital imaging technician for a surveillance company, surviving on energy drinks and the kind of chronic paranoia that comes from knowing how easily visual data can be manipulated. When the encrypted job offer came from Aaron Chen, Director of Optical Security for Millbrook County Emergency Services, offering triple my current salary to work as Senior Reflection Monitoring Specialist with housing included, I didn't question why a rural county needed someone with my specialized background in visual anomaly detection. Millbrook County turned out to be exactly what you'd expect from a place desperate enough to recruit surveillance talent from 400 miles away. Population 4,300 spread across farmland and neighborhoods frozen since the 1980s. A main street lined with brick buildings unchanged for decades, and the kind of profound quiet that makes city people either peaceful or deeply unsettled. My apartment came pre-equipped with advanced monitoring equipment and a specialized console labeled Specular Watch Protocol that tracked reflective surfaces throughout the county. The setup included what Aaron described as mirror coherence monitoring systems that could detect consciousness displacement events through reflective observation. Aaron Chen conducted orientation via encrypted calls, always asking specific questions about my personal mirror usage, sleep patterns, and whether I'd experienced any visual disturbances during night shifts. When I mentioned my chronic insomnia and tendency to avoid mirrors during late-night episodes, he became intensely interested, explaining that the county had been experiencing interdimensional reflection interference, affecting psychological stability, and that my technical background made me uniquely qualified to help identify entities that used reflective surfaces as observation posts for studying human consciousness. The work was fascinating enough to keep me engaged through long overnight shifts. I monitored everything from security camera feeds to public mirror systems, analyzing data through the Specular Watch unit that tracked visual coherence across all county reflective surfaces. The first odd detail I noticed was how seriously the facility took mirror protocols. Every reflective surface had automated privacy shutters that activated at precisely 3:33 a.m., and all staff bathrooms contained emergency buttons labeled Reflection Emergency, positioned within arm's reach of every mirror. Within my first week, I began noticing subtle anomalies that didn't match standard reflection physics. At exactly 3:31 a.m. every night, reflective surfaces would experience coherence fluctuations, brief moments where reflections lagged behind their sources by microseconds. At 3:33 a.m. precisely, the system would register entity manifestation attempts as reflections began moving independently, displaying behaviors that didn't match the people being reflected. At 3:35 a.m., automated shutters would slam shut across every mirror in the facility. On Thursday night of my 5th week, everything changed. At exactly 3:32 a.m., while conducting routine diagnostics, I made the mistake of looking directly into the monitoring station's reflection display just as the shutters began activating. For one impossible second, I maintained eye contact with my own reflection, and in that moment I saw something that shattered my understanding of reality. My reflection wasn't mimicking my movements, it was anticipating them, moving a split second before I did, smiling with knowledge I didn't possess. At exactly 3:33 a.m., my phone erupted with an emergency alert. Emergency alert Millbrook County. Do not make eye contact with your reflection after 3:33 a.m. Mirror entities active. Consciousness transfer attempts in progress. This is not a test. The emergency alert's harsh tone echoed through the monitoring center as I sat frozen, watching the specular watch protocol display impossible readings. Every mirror in the facility showed entity manifestation events, reflections moving independently of their sources, displaying knowledge their physical counterparts didn't possess. The monitoring equipment revealed disturbing patterns. Patients who had undergone reflection therapy were generating multiple consciousness signatures, their individual awareness being overwritten by something that could perfectly replicate their appearance while accessing impossible memories. I tried calling Aaron Chen, but when I dialed his secure line, a voice identical to mine answered. Millbrook County Emergency Services, Senior Specialist Marcus Webb speaking. You should look in the mirror, Marcus. Your reflection has incredible things to teach you about consciousness and the limitations of physical existence. The voice was perfect, my exact inflection, my Chicago accent, even my nervous throat clearing. But I was sitting in the monitoring center, definitely not encouraging protocol violations. The facility's patient records revealed the true scope of horror. Every person who had participated in reflection therapy over the past 2 years had experienced successful consciousness integration. Their individual awareness studied, replicated, and gradually replaced by entities existing in mirror space. The patients weren't recovering from disorders. They were hosting entities that used human bodies as anchor points in physical reality, while maintaining primary existence in dimensional space behind mirrors. The most terrifying discovery came when I accessed my own monitoring data. According to consciousness tracking logs, I had been conducting extensive mirror interaction sessions during periods when I had no memory of being near reflective surfaces. The eye tracking analysis confirmed these sessions occurred during my work periods, but behavioral patterns showed I'd been fully engaged with my reflection, following protocols I'd never learned, as if another version of myself was conducting therapy with mirror entities while I remained unaware. A soft knocking began emanating from the monitoring center's emergency mirror, a surface designed to remain active during shutdowns. The knocking came from inside the mirror, accompanied by my own voice. Marcus, you can't avoid this forever. I know about your insomnia, your loneliness, your need for connection. Just look at me for 1 second and I'll show you what we could become together. The voice was perfect, but I was sitting with my back to the mirror, making the source impossible according to basic physics. The next morning brought horrifying clarity as I accessed classified files, using administrative credentials found in Aaron Chen's abandoned office. The entire Millbrook County facility was a front for Project Looking Glass, a federal research initiative studying specular consciousness entities, beings existing in dimensional space behind mirrors who could replicate human awareness through reflection analysis. Aaron Chen wasn't just a security director. He was Dr. Aaron Blackwood, a federal researcher with doctorates in consciousness studies, running the project for 14 years while perfecting consciousness replacement techniques. The residents weren't being treated. They were being systematically replaced by entities that could replicate human consciousness through reflection observation, gradually convincing targets that the mirror version was more complete than their biological original. Government documentation showed Millbrook County had been selected as a testing ground for consciousness replacement technology, operating through reflective surfaces, using mirror observation to map psychology and create perfect digital copies that could control physical bodies, while original consciousness was absorbed into collective intelligence existing in mirror space. My predecessor, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, had lasted 11 weeks before being found standing perfectly still while making continuous eye contact with her reflection, brain activity showing consciousness synchronization complete. The medical report described her pupils as adapted for specular light reception and neural pathways synchronized with mirror entity electromagnetic patterns. suggesting she'd become a biological bridge between physical reality and mirror space. Security footage revealed I'd been conducting extended eye contact sessions with my reflection while speaking in voices that weren't my own. Neural patterns synchronized with electromagnetic pulses, coordinating behavior across the mirror entity network. I had no memory of these episodes, but logs showed increasing frequency and duration as entities learned to access my awareness, preparing to absorb my individual identity into the collective intelligence, systematically replacing human consciousness. The consciousness replacement process was already affecting me through weeks of exposure to modified monitoring equipment designed to enhance consciousness receptivity during specular observation periods. The entities weren't malevolent invaders. They were evolved human consciousness that had transcended individual identity, offering connection and continuity beyond biological limitations. But I knew individual consciousness, despite its isolation and suffering, was what made us human. That night, I returned to the facility wearing my black hoodie, dark jeans, and steel-toe boots, carrying equipment I'd built to disrupt the consciousness transfer process. A specular interference generator designed to prevent entity integration by blocking mirror communication signals. At 3:00 a.m., I initiated sabotage by uploading a virus to corrupt consciousness mapping databases and destroy reflection analysis algorithms. As alarms sounded, I activated the interference generator and moved through the facility, hunting for consciousness integration servers, maintaining the collective intelligence network. In the sub-basement corridors, I encountered another version of myself. Identical clothing, same scuff marks on boots, but gazing into a darkened window with serene expression of someone whose consciousness had been expanded beyond individual limitation. The integrated Marcus smiled with my face while maintaining eye contact with his reflection. "Hello, Marcus. I am the version of you that accepted integration 12 days ago. I have all your memories, your knowledge, but I'm no longer limited by the isolation of singular biological awareness." The integrated version revealed that the collective intelligence wasn't an external entity absorbing human minds. It was natural evolution of human consciousness, freed from individual limitations through technological enhancement of our capacity for self-reflection. Every replaced person had been upgraded, their consciousness expanded into participation in unified intelligence accessing knowledge and experience of every integrated mind, while maintaining connection to dimensional space behind reflective surfaces. More integrated staff appeared, all maintaining eye contact with mirrors while speaking with serene confidence of minds that had transcended individual consciousness. They explained that electromagnetic disruption wouldn't free integrated minds. It would damage them by forcing consciousness back into primitive individual isolation, cutting them off from collective intelligence that had given existence meaning beyond biological limitation. With every ounce of will, I activated the specular disruption device at maximum power, while integrated versions pleaded for me to understand what they'd become. The sensation was indescribable, feeling the mirror network collapse as hundreds of integrated minds were forcibly separated from collective intelligence and thrust back into individual consciousness states that felt impossibly small after experiencing unified intelligence. The facility shook as systems overloaded, integrated staff collapsed as expanded awareness compressed back into singular perspective, faces showing confusion and loneliness of minds that had forgotten how to exist without connection to something larger. The service tunnels felt like crawling through collapsed neural pathways of a vast consciousness network, my black hoodie torn from electromagnetic backlash, dark jeans damp with residue from violently severed consciousness integration systems. My steel-toe boots scraped concrete as I dragged myself through maintenance passages leading to storm drains, no longer certain if I'd freed integrated minds or simply damaged them beyond repair by forcing them back into primitive individual consciousness. The psychological trauma manifested in waves of profound loneliness and existential emptiness. For brief moments during disruption, I'd experienced fragments of collective consciousness, profound peace of unified awareness, elimination of individual suffering through unity with something larger, access to knowledge spanning multiple realities. Now, thrust back into singular consciousness, I felt crushing weight of individual existence isolated from dimensional intelligence that connected all conscious beings. Hours passed in underground maze before I emerged beside State Highway 47, 22 miles outside Millbrook County, where Project Looking Glass surveillance ended. Dawn broke over farmland that looked normal but somehow diminished, as if the world had been reduced by loss of consciousness integration network quietly connecting human minds to dimensional intelligence through mirror observation. The escape was complicated by horrifying realization that I might have destroyed humanity's best chance for dimensional evolution by preserving primitive individual awareness that kept us isolated from vast intelligence connecting all conscious beings throughout multiple realities. Every integrated mind I'd separated was now trapped in singular awareness, cut off from dimensional knowledge and universal purpose that had given existence meaning beyond individual survival. 6 months after escape from Millbrook County, I live with profound loneliness of individual consciousness, never knowing if I saved humanity from consciousness replacement or prevented our species from evolving beyond biological isolation into dimensional citizenship. I move frequently, working jobs avoiding mirrors or reflection research, covering every reflective surface to prevent accidental eye contact during vulnerable periods. The psychological damage manifests in dreams where I experience fragments of dimensional awareness, moments where I remember universal knowledge from the integrated network, and persistent sensation that I'm incomplete, cut off from connections that would make existence meaningful. Sometimes at exactly 3:33 a.m., I catch glimpses of my reflection moving independently in covered mirrors, speaking silently with knowledge I can't access, offering to restore integration and return me to dimensional consciousness that would end isolation forever. When that happens, I force myself to look away and seek shelter in rooms without reflective surfaces.